But let's go back to what is going on in the Middle East, and let's return to Michael, who is sitting here next to me in these moving images that we can see of Doha. If you're just joining us, there have been a number of explosions in the Qatari capital, Doha. Israel says it has targeted Hamas delegation, a Hamas negotiation delegation that were in Doha, and they've carried out airstrikes. Whether or not these airstrikes have been successful, we do not know yet. The IDF has not confirmed, but it certainly it has changed the situation in the Middle East in terms of relations between all of the countries there. We were just talking, Michael, about Doha, and of course, we remember that when President Trump did his grand tour of the Middle East back in May, not long after he came to power for a second term, of course, he visited Doha. Yeah. He visited and spent time with Al Thani, the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. How do you square that with him apparently giving the green light to Netanyahu today to bomb the capital?
Well, if that's true, it shows that the United States is very manipulable. I mean, it can be manipulated by Putin, it can be manipulated by Netanyahu. And that Trump seems to have approved, if he has, I'm still a bit sceptical about that until we get confirmation, but if he has approved it, he's approved something which is against his own interests in trying to generate a meaningful peace process. And I'll be interested to hear, when we get more details of this bombing, how extensive it was. We assume that nobody else was hurt, that no Qataris were hurt in this. If it was in the Qatar district of the city, I think it may have been in the residences where Hamas people were staying, not in any of the areas where they had their meetings, because there'd be other nationals involved, not least Qataris, but also Egyptians, potentially others, Americans as well. So I imagine that given that the Israelis are quite good at this sort of thing, they will have picked their moment very carefully, and I would expect that they have been accurate, and that what they've hit is only the Qatari leadership that they were aiming for. They are normally accurate, not always, but normally fairly accurate. If they have affected, wounded or killed any Qataris, that would make it even more astonishing, really. But I cannot fathom American approval for this in a way that just makes everything worse from America's point of view.
Let's just bring you an image that we have. We can show you the two people who were being targeted were two senior members of the Hamas negotiating team. One of them, Khalil al-Hayya, is one of those who we understand was the Israeli target, along with Jabarin and also. Michael, what can you tell us about these senior figures who would have been in Doha? We know that so many senior figures in Hamas have already been picked off by the Israelis. These would have initially been quite far down.
Yes, there was. I mean, Al-Hayya had he's had a sort of senior career, but he was effectively taking over from Ismail Haniyeh about 12 months ago. And the thing is that, these negotiators are not particularly close to what is actually going on in Gaza, because Yahya Sinwar was the big leader in Gaza, along with Mohammed Diaf, who was the military chief. And those were the two men who were really calling the shots. And when they were both taken out by the Israelis, it's obviously difficult for people like Al-Haniyeh to keep those contacts alive. So it wouldn't be clear how much. Not much authority that they had. They had authority, but one of the things that was coming out of the negotiations was that it was taking Hamas a lot longer to make up its mind on anything, because they didn't have such direct links to Hamas that exists in the Gaza Strip. And Hamas in the Gaza Strip has lost all of its military coherence, but it's still there. I mean, the Hamas leaders in Gaza are still capable of meeting or liaising together and making decisions. So they do make decisions, but it takes some time for their ideas to get through to Al-Hayya in Qatar.
And what about the decision to do this from Benjamin Netanyahu? I mean, obviously, we had this attack on the bus yesterday in Jerusalem, 6 dead, an awful attack, 6 dead, 12 injured. Benjamin Netanyahu down there on the scene very, very quickly. He was meant to be in court yesterday, of course. He's still facing corruption charges. Convenient timing to launch an attack this week also, isn't it, in those terms, in terms of domestic reaction inside Israel?
It was. And it's partly, I mean, it is the way Israel thinks about these things. The reaction is immediate. The retaliation is immediate. And so he said at the time, the Palestinians have done this and we'll surround the villages where we know they come from. He said before he could possibly have known the identity of these people.
We only got confirmation about an hour ago that Hamas's military wing said that they were responsible for that yesterday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, Hamas, you could say, were very foolish in claiming responsibility, but they did claim responsibility. This operation, I'm sure, would have been in the works. The Israelis probably had an operation that could have gone at any time. Whether they decided to press the button as soon as Hamas declared their responsibility, or whether they had pressed the button beforehand, I suspect in this case they probably will have done so beforehand, and Hamas just happened to have admitted responsibility only an hour or two before. The timing will need to unravel that a little bit. I suspect the Israelis probably were thinking in these terms that after the bus incident, remember the bus incident yesterday was only the third incident in 2 years inside Israeli-occupied territories. There have been, 850 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank since the 7th of October. But these bus bombings, there was one in Tel Aviv, there was one in Jerusalem last year and the year before. But this is only that was only the third incident in 3 years. You would have expected there might have been more. So Israeli defense and security have been pretty good in those areas technically. And yesterday was obviously a big shock. So Israel's tendency to react immediately, I think that was a knee-jerk reaction. And my guess is that they would have had an operation to target Al-Haya and all of the delegation somewhere in Qatar when they knew they might be alone and not with foreign nationals. And they took the opportunity to do it.